I never screamed when I found out my husband was cheating. I didn't throw things. I didn't beg him to explain. I smiled. And that smile is the reason his life no longer exists the way he remembers it. I'm telling you this now not because I want sympathy, but because I want you to understand something very important. The most dangerous kind of revenge is not loud. It doesn't come with warnings. It comes quietly, patiently, while the person who hurt you laughs and believes they've already won. You're watching Revenge Time X. If you enjoy real, emotional revenge stories told honestly, subscribe now before I continue, because what I'm about to share only gets darker from here. I met my husband, Daniel, when I was 24. He was charming in a calm way, not loud, not flashy. The kind of man who listened more than he spoke. That made me feel seen. We worked in the same corporate office, different departments, same floor. Coffee breaks turned into conversations. Conversations turned into late dinners. Late dinners turned into promises. When he proposed, it wasn't dramatic. No crowd, no cameras. Just us sitting in his car during a rainstorm. He said he didn't want a perfect wife. He wanted a loyal partner. I believed him because loyalty mattered to me more than romance. Our marriage looked stable from the outside. A clean apartment. Weekend grocery trips. Family dinners. Vacations once a year. I supported his career without question. When he worked late, I understood. When he traveled, I packed his bags. I trusted him completely. That trust made me blind. The first crack appeared in something small. He stopped looking at me when he spoke. His phone became more important than our conversations. He laughed more, but not with me. When I asked what was wrong, he said I was imagining things. Then came the night that changed everything. I had a migraine and left work early. I decided to surprise him with his favorite dinner. I remember feeling proud of myself, like I was being a good wife. When I opened our apartment door, I heard laughter. Not the kind we shared. It was playful, intimate. I walked in slowly. Daniel was standing in the kitchen. So was another woman. She was wearing my robe. They didn't notice me at first. Then he turned around. He didn't look shocked. He smiled. And then he laughed. He laughed like I was the punchline of a joke he'd been waiting to tell. He said my name like it was amusing, like I was late to my own humiliation. That moment didn't break me. It erased me. I remember asking one simple question. How long? He didn't answer immediately. The woman did. She crossed her arms and said, long enough. That woman was someone I knew. Someone who had been in my home. Someone who had hugged me at parties. Someone who had listened while I talked about my marriage. She wasn't just an affair. She was betrayal with a face. Daniel didn't apologize. He didn't chase me when I walked out. He didn't call that night. Or the next day. Instead, he sent a message. You'll get over it. You always do. That's when I understood something terrifying. He had been laughing at my pain long before I ever found out. The days that followed felt unreal. I went to work. I smiled at coworkers. I answered emails. Inside, everything was collapsing. I replayed every memory, every time I defended him, every time I chose silence to keep the peace. I cried alone in my car. I cried in the shower. I cried into pillows so no one would hear me. But in front of him, I was calm. That scared him. He asked me why I wasn't angry. I told him anger wastes energy. That was the first lie I told him. He thought he'd won. He moved the other woman into our apartment. He told mutual friends that I was emotional, unstable, dramatic. He said he had tried, but I was too sensitive. And people believed him. That hurt more than the cheating. I lost friends. I lost my reputation. I lost my place in his world. What he didn't know was that while he was busy enjoying his freedom, I was watching, listening, learning. Pain sharpens focus. I started noticing details I had ignored before. Financial patterns, lies that didn't add up, stories that changed slightly every time he told them. Daniel was careless. He always had been. I didn't confront him. I didn't warn him. I didn't threaten him. I waited. At night, I wrote everything down. Dates, times, messages, names. I saved screenshots. I recorded conversations. I became invisible in his life. And invisible people see everything. He laughed at me once more, months later, during a legal discussion. He told me I had no power, that I would walk away with nothing. I remember looking at him and thinking, you still think this is over? It hadn't even begun. I stayed quiet for weeks after that conversation. Not because I was afraid, but because I needed him comfortable. Daniel had always underestimated silence. To him, silence meant weakness. It meant surrender. He didn't understand that silence can also be preparation. He continued living his life openly, parties, trips, social media posts with her. Smiling pictures meant to show the world how happy he was now that I was gone. Each post was like a needle, but I learned how to stop reacting. Pain when controlled becomes fuel. I moved into a small rented apartment on the other side of the city. Bare walls, a mattress on the floor, a single chair. It felt empty, but I needed that emptiness. I needed space to think clearly without memory screaming at me. That's when the emotional breakdown truly began. At night, when there was no one watching, I collapsed. I questioned my worth. I replayed every argument, wondering if I had failed somewhere. I blamed myself for trusting too much, for loving too deeply, for believing loyalty was enough to hold a marriage together. Some nights, I didn't sleep at all. I sat on the floor, staring at my phone, reading old messages from him, messages where he told me he loved me, messages where he promised forever. I realized something during those nights. He didn't just cheat on me physically. He cheated on the truth. He rewrote our entire history to make himself look innocent. That realization killed the last part of me that still hoped for an apology. I stopped crying after that. Instead, I started rebuilding myself quietly. I went back through our shared finances. Daniel handled most of it, but my name was on everything. Accounts, loans, investments. I had trusted him with numbers. The same way, I trusted him with my heart. That trust turned out to be useful. I discovered irregularities. Money moved between accounts without explanation. Expenses that didn't match his salary. Payments to companies that didn't exist anymore. Daniel was ambitious but impatient. He cut corners. He always believed he was smarter than everyone else, including the system. I consulted a lawyer, not to attack him, but to understand, to learn where the cracks were. I didn't tell the lawyer everything. I listened more than I spoke. Then I started collecting proof. Emails, transactions, contracts recorded. Phone calls where he bragged about manipulating numbers. Conversations where he laughed about how no one would ever catch him. He trusted his voice too much. His confidence betrayed him. While doing this, I ran into the other woman once. Accidentally, she said. She looked at me with pity. She told me Daniel had never been happy with me, that I was cold, that I didn't appreciate him. I let her talk. Every word she said revealed how deeply he had poisoned her against me. She wasn't my enemy. She was a reflection of his manipulation. That didn't excuse her, but it clarified my target. The breakdown returned one final time after that encounter. I sat in my apartment and laughed. Not because anything was funny, but because the absurdity of it all hit me at once. How easily someone can destroy years of trust and walk away smiling. That night I made a decision. I would not destroy him publicly. I would destroy the foundation that allowed him to laugh in the first place. I began my revenge planning with one rule. Everything had to be legal. No drama, no confrontation. No emotional explosions. Just consequences. I waited for the right moment. Daniel was up for a promotion. A big one. He talked about it constantly. He needed clean records. A perfect image. No complications. That's when I stepped forward. I submitted evidence anonymously. Not to his company directly, but to an external audit body that worked closely with them. Documents, audio, clear timelines. I didn't exaggerate. I didn't add opinions. I let facts speak. Then I waited again. Weeks passed. He didn't notice anything at first. He continued posting smiles, continued laughing, continued living like nothing could touch him, until the audit began. I heard about it from a former colleague. Casual conversation, concerned tone. Did you hear about Daniel's department? I acted surprised. Inside I was calm. The investigation spread slowly, like a shadow moving across his life. Meetings behind closed doors. Sudden schedule changes. Tension in his voice when he spoke to people. He called me one night. For the first time in months. He asked if I knew anything. His voice wasn't confident anymore. It was sharp with fear. I told him the truth. I said no. That was the second lie I told him. The other woman left shortly after. She didn't say why. She didn't have to. When the stability disappears, so does loyalty built on convenience. Daniel's reputation began to crumble. Friends distanced themselves. Colleagues avoided eye contact. His promotion vanished silently. Then came the final blow. Legal consequences. Accounts frozen. Assets questioned. His name attached to investigations that would follow him for years. I didn't attend any hearings. I didn't show up anywhere he could see me. I watched from a distance. The day his laughter stopped, I felt nothing. No joy, no satisfaction. Just relief. Months later, he sent me a message. No anger, no arrogance. Just a single sentence. I didn't think you were capable of this. I didn't reply. Because the truth was simple. I wasn't capable of revenge. I was capable of patience. And patience is far more dangerous. Today my life is quieter. Not perfect. Not dramatic. But honest. I rebuilt myself piece by piece. Trust came last. Daniel still exists somewhere, trying to recover a life he laughed away. And I exist here, free from the weight of loving someone who never deserved it. That was my revenge. Not destruction, but survival. Time didn't heal me the way people promised it would. Time didn't erase memories or soften the betrayal. What time did was teach me how to live with the truth without letting it control me. After Daniel's downfall became public inside his industry, rumors spread quietly. No headlines, no viral drama, just whispers that followed him into every interview room and every networking event. He tried to reinvent himself, changed companies, changed cities, even changed the way he dressed. But reputations don't reset as easily as social media profiles. I learned later that he blamed everyone but himself. The system, his colleagues, bad luck, even me. In his version of reality, I was still the villain, the bitter ex-wife who couldn't let go. That knowledge used to bother me. Then one day it didn't. I started focusing on my own recovery in ways I never had during the marriage. Therapy wasn't dramatic. It was uncomfortable. It forced me to face how often I had minimized my own needs to keep someone else comfortable, how I had confused loyalty with silence. I learned that strength isn't staying when you're being disrespected. Strength is leaving without needing revenge. What I did to Daniel wasn't driven by hatred. It was driven by clarity, by refusing to protect someone who had already decided I was disposable. People sometimes ask me if I regret it. I don't, because regret implies I did something wrong. All I did was stop lying for him. The other woman reached out to me once, long after everything ended. She apologized. Not dramatically, just honestly. She told me she had seen his patterns too late, that she had become the next version of me. I wished her peace. I meant it. Revenge stories often end with triumph, with smiles, with celebration. Mine didn't. It ended with acceptance. I accepted that betrayal says more about the betrayer than the one betrayed. I accepted that silence can be powerful. I accepted that walking away doesn't mean losing. Daniel laughed at my pain because he believed I was weak. He was wrong. I was patient. And patience outlasts laughter every single time. I didn't know fear could change shape until I saw it happen to him. At first, Daniel's fear was loud. Angry phone calls, messages sent and deleted, late-night voicemails where his voice shook between rage and panic. He wanted explanations, someone to blame, someone to scream at. I stayed silent. Silence does something strange to guilty people. It gives their thoughts room to grow teeth. Months passed, and his fear became quieter.
That was worse.
He started seeing patterns that weren't there. Every email from an unknown sender made his hands sweat. Every knock on the door felt like consequences finally arriving. He checked his bank app obsessively, afraid something else would disappear overnight. He avoided mirrors because he didn't like the man staring back. People around him noticed the change. He stopped laughing completely. The man who once laughed at my pain now flinched when someone raised their voice near him. He jumped when his phone rang. He slept with the lights on. This is what no one tells you about people like Daniel. They don't fear punishment. They fear exposure. They fear being seen the way they truly are. And once that fear takes root, it never leaves. I heard from someone we both used to know that he had started drinking alone. Not at bars, at home. Curtains closed. Television on mute. Sitting in the dark with a glass in his hand, replaying old conversations in his head, trying to figure out where it all went wrong. He couldn't, because to understand what destroyed him, he would have had to accept that he did. That kind of self-awareness is unbearable for men like him. One night, almost a year after everything, he showed up outside my apartment building. I saw him through the security camera. He looked smaller, thinner. His confidence had rotted from the inside out. I didn't open the door. He stood there for a long time, long enough to realize I was home, long enough to understand I was choosing not to see him. That broke something in him. He sent me a final message after that. It wasn't angry. It wasn't apologetic either. It said, "I don't sleep anymore. I keep thinking something else is coming." He was right. Fear doesn't end when punishment does. Fear ends only when guilt is faced. And he would never face it. The most disturbing part wasn't watching his life fall apart. It was knowing that no matter where he went, no matter who he became, he would always carry that feeling with him. The feeling of waiting for the next email, the next loss, the next truth to surface. Even if nothing else ever happened, his mind would keep punishing him. Every day. Forever. I didn't ruin his life. I removed his ability to feel safe inside it. That's the kind of revenge no courtroom can give you. That's the kind of revenge that doesn't end. And the truth is, I don't think about him anymore. But I know he still thinks about me. In quiet rooms, in sleepless nights, in the space between one breath and the next. Because the last thing he ever learned from me was this: some pain doesn't scream. It waits. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. Fear doesn't stay still. It evolves. Years passed. My life moved forward in small, steady ways. A new job, new routines, new people who knew nothing about my past. I rebuilt myself slowly, carefully, like someone walking on glass they couldn't see but could still feel. Then one afternoon I received an email. No subject line, no greeting, just one sentence. "I think someone is watching me." I knew it was from Daniel before I even checked the sender. I stared at the screen for a long time. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. What I felt was something colder, a distant awareness that fear had finally hollowed him out. I didn't respond. That silence did more damage than any reply ever could. After that email, he unraveled faster. He began reaching out to people from his past. Old colleagues, former friends, even distant relatives, asking strange questions. If they had heard anything, if anyone had contacted them about him, if they thought his name was still circulating. Most of them stopped answering. When people stop responding, the mind fills in the blanks with monsters of its own making. He moved again. Another city, another attempt at disappearing. But fear follows the guilty because it lives inside them. You can't pack it into boxes and leave it behind. I heard he stopped using social media entirely. He believed every profile was watching him. Every comment was coded. Every silence was intentional. He began interpreting ordinary events as warnings. A random audit at his new company became proof someone was closing in. A delayed paycheck meant accounts were being investigated again. A misdelivered letter felt like a message meant to scare him. Nothing was happening. And that was the most disturbing part. The punishment had ended long ago. The fear hadn't. He started keeping his curtains closed all the time. Not because he was hiding, but because he felt exposed. He changed his phone number repeatedly. He avoided long-term leases. He lived as if permanence itself was dangerous. Imagine waking up every day believing the ground beneath. You might disappear without warning. That was his life. I ran into him once by accident, years after everything. A grocery store in a city I didn't even know he lived in. I almost didn't recognize him. He froze when he saw me, completely still, like a hunted animal realizing the threat was real. I nodded politely. Nothing more. That moment haunted him far more than it haunted me, because in his mind, my calm meant control. He didn't know if I was still capable of doing something to him. That uncertainty ate him alive. He never spoke to me again after that. But I know he talked about me. People mentioned it casually. He referred to me as if I were an event, not a person, as if I was something that could happen again. That's what fear does. It turns people into symbols. The truth is I wasn't planning anything. I hadn't been for years. I had already taken what I needed back, my power. But Daniel could never believe that, because people who laugh at pain believe pain must always come back louder. They don't understand closure. They only understand threat. Today, my life is quiet, predictable, safe. I sleep without checking my phone. I trust my surroundings. I don't look over my shoulder. He doesn't have that luxury. He lives in permanent anticipation, waiting for consequences that already came, waiting for exposure that already happened, waiting for me to do something I will never do. That is the most disturbing kind of fear. Not the fear of what is coming, but the fear that something could come at any time, from anywhere, for the rest of your life, and that fear has his name written on it. There is one last thing I never told anyone, not because it was dramatic, but because it was ordinary. After that accidental meeting at the grocery store, nothing else happened. No messages, no emails, no encounters, no hidden moves from me. My life stayed exactly the same, and that's what finally destroyed him, because fear needs action to justify itself. When nothing happens, fear turns inward. I learned later that Daniel began seeing doctors, first for insomnia, then for anxiety, then for panic attacks that came without warning. His body reacted before his mind could catch. Up, sweating, shaking, shortness of breath. A constant feeling that something terrible was about to happen. But nothing ever did. He asked one therapist the same question over and over, according to someone who knew him. When does it stop? The therapist told him fear stops when the threat is gone. Daniel didn't understand that he was the threat. He kept expecting a final moment, a final punishment, a final message from me that would explain everything and let him breathe again. It never came. People like him need endings. They need confrontation. They need someone to scream or cry or forgive them so they can move on. Silence gives them none of that. Silence leaves them alone with themselves. The last thing I heard about him was simple, almost boring. He quit another job, not fired, not investigated. He just left. Said the pressure was too much. Said he couldn't focus. Said he felt watched even when he was alone. No one was watching him. That's what makes it disturbing. The fear didn't come from me anymore. It came from memory, from guilt, from knowing how easily he had destroyed something real and how irreversible that destruction was. Some nights I think about the moment he laughed at me in the kitchen, how confident he looked, how untouchable he felt, how certain he was that pain belonged to other people, not him. That certainty is gone forever, and no amount of apologies, explanations, or reinvention can bring it back. I didn't take his money. I didn't take his freedom. I didn't take his future. I took his sense of safety. And once that's gone, life becomes a long hallway with no doors. Just footsteps echoing behind you, even when no one is there. That is where he lives now. Not because I put him there, but because he laughed when he should have been afraid. There is a certain kind of fear that never shows itself on the surface. It doesn't scream. It doesn't beg. It doesn't even panic anymore. It settles. Daniel reached that stage quietly. People around him thought he was improving. He spoke less about being watched. He stopped asking questions. He learned how to nod at the right moments, how to appear normal. He even smiled again carefully, like someone testing a muscle they don't trust. But inside, the fear had changed direction. It stopped looking outward and started turning inward. Every decision felt dangerous to him. Every choice felt like a trap. He second-guessed emails before sending them, rewrote messages until they lost meaning. He delayed simple actions because he was convinced timing mattered, that one wrong move could trigger something unseen. He lived as if the world were waiting for him to make a mistake. That kind of existence is exhausting. He couldn't enjoy good moments because they felt temporary. He couldn't plan for the future because the future felt conditional. Even happiness became suspicious. When things went well, he waited for the price. That waiting hollowed him out. I know this because one of the few people still in his life reached out to me, not to accuse, not to threaten, just to ask, "What did you do to him?" I told the truth. Nothing recently. They didn't understand. They thought revenge had to be active, ongoing, loud. They couldn't accept that the most damage had already been done years ago. Daniel started isolating completely after that. He trusted no one enough to stay close. Every relationship felt like a risk. Every bond felt like a weakness someone could use against him. He avoided intimacy, not because he didn't want it, but because intimacy requires safety, and he had none left. At night his thoughts became unbearable. When the world went quiet, his mind filled the silence with every version of himself he refused to face. The liar, the manipulator, the man who laughed while someone else broke. Sleep didn't bring rest. It brought dreams where he was always being asked a question he couldn't answer. Why did you do it? Why did you think you'd get away with it? He woke up already tired, already guilty, already afraid. I never contacted him again. I never needed to. The distance between us wasn't physical. It was psychological. He carried me with him everywhere, not as a person, but as a reminder that actions have memory. Years later, someone mentioned his name casually in conversation. No emotion, no drama. Just a fact. He had moved again. Another city. Another attempt at quiet. I felt nothing. That's when I knew the story was truly over for me. But not for him. Because for Daniel, every quiet place sounds like footsteps when you're already afraid. Every shadow feels intentional when you believe you deserve what's coming. Every peaceful day feels like borrowed time. That is the final consequence. Not punishment, not revenge, but living the rest of your life waiting for something that already happened, and knowing, deep down, that you earned every second of that fear. The last time I heard his name, it was spoken softly. No judgment, no curiosity, just an update that didn't matter to anyone anymore. He keeps to himself now, someone said. Very quiet, very careful. Careful is another word for afraid. I imagined him in a small apartment somewhere. Furniture chosen for function, not comfort. Lights turned on before sunset. Doors locked twice. Phone placed face down, not to hide messages, but to avoid seeing them appear. I imagined the silence around him. The kind that hums. The kind that makes your own breathing feel too loud. He doesn't laugh anymore. Not really. Laughter requires forgetting, even for a second. And forgetting is something he no longer allows himself to do. Every morning he wakes up and checks the world for signs. Not because he expects something specific, but because expecting nothing feels dangerous. He moves through his days slowly, deliberately, as if speed itself might attract attention. At night, when the city quiets down, his thoughts get closer. They sit beside him. They remind him of a kitchen, of a smile, of laughter that landed in the wrong place at the wrong time. There is no relief in remembering. There is only recognition. I don't know if he ever understood what really ended his life as he knew it. It wasn't the investigation. It wasn't the loss of status or money or relationships. It was the moment he realized that I could disappear from his world and still remain inside it. I became the silence he couldn't escape. Not because I chased him, but because I stopped protecting him from himself. My life, meanwhile, became simple. Not easy, simple. I learned to enjoy mornings without dread. I learned to trust my own thoughts again. I learned that peace isn't loud or dramatic. Peace is just the absence of fear. Sometimes late at night, I think about the woman I was before everything happened. The one who believed love could fix anything. I don't miss her. I honor her. She survived so I could exist. As for Daniel, he will keep waiting. Waiting for something to happen. Waiting for a sound that explains everything. Waiting for a moment that never comes. Because the most haunting truth is this. Nothing else is coming for him. No final confrontation. No last message. No closure. Just time. And time, when you are afraid of yourself, is the slowest punishment of all. I didn't destroy his life. I stepped out of it. And that absence became the echo he will hear for the rest of his days.